Robert Black was born out of wedlock on April 21, 1947, in Scotland. His mother, Jessie Hunter Black, wanted to give Robert up for adoption. She planned to give her child up for adoption and move to Australia to escape the pressure she was under in her environment, but she was unable to complete the official adoption process. When Robert was just 6 months old, he was placed with his foster family, Jack and Isabel Margaret Talib. During this period, they gave Robert their own surname. From a young age, Robert exhibited aggressive and antisocial behavior. He had few friends, frequently experienced anger outbursts, and was mocked by his peers as a result. He bullied those younger than him, frequently wet his bed, and paid no attention to personal hygiene, often emitting an unpleasant odor. This led to him being nicknamed Stinky Bob Talib. When Robert was 5 years old, he and a girl his age showed each other their genital areas. After this incident, he began to believe that he should have been born a girl. From the age of 8, he began inserting objects into his anal region, a habit that would continue into adulthood. He was constantly beaten by his family, and people had grown accustomed to seeing him covered in bruises. This continued until his foster mother died. When his stepmother died when he was 10, he was placed with another family in 1958. Shortly thereafter, he did something terrible, and his life changed again. While living with his new family, he sexually assaulted a young girl, and his new mother reported him to social services. After the complaint, he was placed in a child welfare institution where girls and boys lived together, but he did not behave himself there either. When he exposed his genitals to people at his new institution, he was expelled and placed in a highly disciplined institution where only boys lived. For 3 years, he was subjected to abuse by an employee until the employee died of natural causes. Robert Black left the care home in 1963 and settled in Green Lake, where he worked as a butcher making deliveries. This job was perfect for him, as it allowed him to harass girls living alone in the homes he delivered to. None of these actions were reported at the time. In 1963, he strangled a 7-year-old girl in a park, causing her to lose consciousness. He was arrested the next day and brought to court, but before his trial began, a psychiatric evaluation was requested. The report revealed that the patient had withdrawn from the world and refused treatment. Interestingly, he only received a reprimand and was released. He later moved back to Grand Mounts, and he moved into the home of an elderly couple, then met Pamela Hodson, and they began dating. Their relationship lasted only a few months. Robert proposed marriage, but Pamela refused. The rejection affected him deeply. 3 years later, Robert molested the grandchildren of the elderly couple he was living with. The family did not report him to the police because they thought it would have a negative impact on their children's psychology. They did not file a complaint, but asked him to leave their home. Robert moved to Black Kilnov and began living with a family who had a 6-year-old child. He exhibited the same behavior in this home as well. This time, the family did not remain silent and reported him. Robert was sentenced to 1 year in prison at a juvenile detention center called Borstal. During his time in prison, Robert had decided never to return there. To achieve this, he knew what he had to do: kill the people he had attacked. After being released from prison in 1968, he moved to London. In his new location, he worked various jobs and eventually began driving a white minibus. This profession taught him about isolated and dark areas on the roads. By the time he committed his first murder, he did not commit any crimes like his previous ones. He constantly changed his appearance and had 9 different pairs of glasses. Of course, until the murder, he continued his fantasies by taking photos of children much younger than himself. He began watching films that were never accepted by society. These fantasies would eventually be revealed. No psychopath wants their fantasies to remain secret. They always wait for the right moment to reveal them. 1981 was the right time for Robert. On August 12, 1981, 9-year-old Jennifer Carty left her friend's house and was riding her bike home. Before she could reach her home, she was abducted by someone. After she didn't return home for a while, her family became suspicious and notified the police. The police searched everywhere for Carty and found her bicycle hours later. The bicycle had been covered with leaves by someone. It was now certain that Jennifer had been kidnapped. 6 days after her kidnapping, her lifeless body was found by 2 hunters. According to the autopsy, she had been sexually assaulted and strangled. After this murder, he did not commit any other crimes for at least a year, as far as the police could confirm. On July 30, 1982, Susan Claire Maxwell was kidnapped while returning home after playing tennis. A missing persons procedure was immediately initiated, and approximately 300 police officers searched for her. On August 12, a truck driver found her lifeless body among the bushes. She was bound and gagged, and her fate was the same as the previous victim. The serial killer resurfaced in 1983 after another year-long hiatus. This time, the crime caused even more outrage in the region. Caroline Hawk, who went missing, was only 6 years old. Her body was found approximately 500 kilometers away from her home, 2 weeks after she went missing. This time, there were some eyewitnesses. According to the eyewitness, the man next to the girl had shaved sides and wore glasses. After this incident, a task force was formed to catch the killer. Experienced detectives managed to connect all these incidents. The man they were looking for was the same person. Due to the short distance between the incidents, the authorities concluded that the killer was a driver. One, they concluded that this driver to make single time to do, and it's recognizing the companies below manages knownly. Even though everyone in the area who had committed similar crimes was questioned, no results were obtained. In 1986, Sarah Harper was kidnapped while on her way home. She was last seen with a man at a supermarket on March 26 and was never seen again. On April 19th, her lifeless body was found 114 kilometers away from her home, with her hands tied and her mouth covered. According to the autopsy, there were signs of sexual assault. While the task force was searching for this man, he continued to commit crimes. British investigators believed they could track him down using a database they had created. Although they were unable to find him, some criminals who committed similar crimes were arrested and sent to prison. In 1988, the detectives requested profiling assistance from the FBI. According to the FBI's report, he was described as a white man in his 30s or 40s who lived alone. The report also stated that he had a disheveled appearance. He might have been someone living alone in a rented house in a lower middle-class neighborhood. He was probably hiding some of his victims' belongings. In April 1988, a girl named Teresa Thornhill was attempted to be kidnapped. It all happened on her way home after spending an evening with her friends. Teresa and her boyfriend had parted ways at the beginning of a road near Teresa's house. Shortly thereafter, Teresa noticed a white minivan a short distance ahead. The girl and the man continued walking quickly. The man caught up with her from behind and tried to pull her into the minivan. Teresa resisted and kicked the man while screaming. Teresa's actions alerted her boyfriend, who heard her screams. After Teresa struck the man several more times, he cursed at her and let her go. Robert left the scene after failing to subdue Teresa. This incident was not yet connected to the killer being sought by fetishists. After the last incident, at least as far as is known, no further issues arose. It is believed that Robert remained silent until 1990, but he acted again on July 14, 1990. David, a retired post office manager, was standing in his garden when he noticed a kidnapping. A blue minibus stopped across the road and took away a 6-year-old girl. David saw the whole thing and noted down the minibus's license plate number. He knew the girl who had been kidnapped and immediately went to inform her family and the police. A short time later, the police arrived and began their investigation. Meanwhile, David was telling the police about the incident. Against it, the showtime later the police in Bastwadia the 2006. And in 2001, the minibus returned to the scene. As soon as David saw the minibus, he said it was the one that had kidnapped the girl. The police blocked the vehicle's path, pulled Robert out of the car, and handcuffed him. When they opened the back of the minibus, the girl was unconscious and had been sexually assaulted. After taking him to the police station, the investigators realized it was connected to previous murders. Robert did not admit to any of the crimes during questioning. He could not deny the last incident because he had been caught red-handed. The legal process for the last incident began and ended very quickly. The judge sentenced Black to life in prison. Once this case was resolved, the investigation into the other incidents began again. Robert still refused to confess to anything. Since the investigators did not have a confession, they wanted to find more evidence to bring Robert before the judge. The second-degree evidence was sent to the judge, and once the evidence was deemed sufficient, he was retried for the previous murders. Robert was sentenced to life imprisonment on all charges. In 1995, during his prison stay, two inmates, Robert, he was stabbed in the neck and back, had boiling water poured on his face, was beaten for a long time but survived unscathed, and recovered and died of a heart attack on January 12, 2016. Robert has never admitted to the murders. In fact, the murders may not have stopped there. The task force had collected similar murders committed in the UK and other countries. Robert Black, a long-distance driver, may have committed more than 4 murders. Some of them are: 13-year-old April Fedd disappeared on April 8, 1969 on her way home on her bicycle. On April 21, 1973, 9-year-old Christian disappeared on his way to school. On April 21, 1973, 9-year-old Christian disappeared on his way to school. On April 21, 1973. No body found in 1977, while Robert Black was in Ireland. 6-year-old Mary disappeared on March 18. No body found on August 19, 1978. Jeanette disappeared at the age of 13. She was delivering newspapers at the time Robert was in the area at the time of the girl's disappearance. An official investigation was to be opened, but Black lost his life. The girl's body has not been found. There are at least 5 other similar incidents, and not only in the UK, but in other countries as well,